So growing up, I used to watch a lot of Disney Channel original movies, and there are quite a few that I really enjoyed, and that's when it came to, why not do a review on them? Talking about the reasons I love one movie in particular, sure, that's fine, but it might be too easy. So I've been sitting on this idea for a while. Just take one movie I really love, and pry off those nostalgia goggles so I can rip it to absolute shreds. Not to force myself to hate the movie, but to allow myself a fun little exercise in being more critical, even of things that I like. So for this video, I decided to do a critical review of Read It and Weep, and rip it to absolute shreds. And that's the problem. I'm easy to please. I start watching it, and every time, this is what happens. Oh, Ralph, you're so silly. What are you doing? Huh? Oh, I'm watching this movie. Aren't you supposed to be critiquing this? Oh, not again! So yeah, the problem is every time I sit down to watch this, I accidentally just fall into the trap of passively enjoying it. And it's not because I don't see the problems. Obviously, that's the point of this exercise. But I slowly realize that I get lost in the parts I do enjoy. But I think that this time, I have sufficiently prepared myself to talk about it with an acceptable level of scrutiny you're all here for. So Read It and Weep is a Disney Channel original movie about a young girl named Jamie who writes about an alternative universe in her diary as a means of venting her frustrations of her daily life. When her diary gets accidentally published into the school paper and eventually becomes a book, she's thrust into stardom and begins allowing aspects of herself go unchecked until she ultimately has to come to terms with the reality of the world she lives in. So I think the best way to dissect this movie is to talk about a few foundational points surrounding these characters. So let's talk about that book. The first problem is Jamie's story is good at setting up the premise for the plot of the movie, but it doesn't really hold up on its own. Her story is more or less a really bad prop, and it doesn't seem all that interesting. In fact, the story about the story is a far better one to tell, and once you know it, that's what this movie is. It is worth noting that the narration at the start is part of her book, Saves the World, and it does a really good job of setting up the story, as I'm sure it does in the book itself, but it's hard to see it for its value beyond being a supplement to something much larger. For fun, I decided to pause at all the little excerpts from the book as they moved across the screen to see if perhaps the props department was cheating or not, and what I found was really interesting. It reads like a diary. It's a collection of blurbs about something that's either frustrated or embarrassed her, like this page about meeting a bilingual guy, or her venting about how Sawyer and her friends are annoying. There's a meme circulating around that highlights a function that many of us go through. Imagining conversations about what we wish we would have said about previous situations, or the creation of future conversations over fictional situations that will never happen. So for Jamie, her diary is just another form of that. And that's what I imagine her diary looks like. I guess you could argue that you very well could string together a bunch of these blurbs with writing daydream fantasy to make a story, but the truth of the matter is, I find it wildly hard to believe that it would be even the slightest bit cohesive. The first comparison I came up with was Drew Gooden's review of Gabby Hanna's poetry book. A lot of half-finished shower thoughts littered amongst something halfway decent. But clearly the weakness is that these blurbs have no real connection, and it becomes really obvious in the scene where Jamie's book is read out loud during class. I want you to pay attention to the teacher in the background.
Can you believe this one? It's totally weak sauce.
Gossipers, insulters,
I don't know.
backstabbers.
Marco's pretty cool.
No match for Isabella. With a flick of her fingers, she would zap them into perpetual...
All right, did you pay attention? Well, if not, don't worry. Here it is again.
Myrna and her evil clique of gossipers, insulters, and backstabbers were no match for Isabella. With a flick of her finger, she would zap them into perpetual detention.
How could I have gone this long without having ever realized this? Speaking of cliques, the throwaway antagonist of this movie is Sawyer, the popular mean girl of the school, because of course she is.
Jamie. Oh, I was gonna say geek.
I'm sorry, did you want something?
Yes, I wanted you to move. You're blocking my locker.
I heard the tryouts are gonna be really intense this year. Are you guys trying out for cheerleading?
Duh. Are you?
No.
No, I didn't think so. That's a very good call on your part.
And as expected, she has zero nuance. Yet, somehow she's the one who speaks the most truth in this movie.
Because this is the real world, Jamie. You can't just zap me into a perpetual detention. She wrote about all of us. She trashed all of us.
Oh yeah, and there's a point in the movie where Jamie has an actual meltdown on live television and reveals that the entire cast of her book is based on everyone she knows from school. What's really messed up, aside from all these kids learning how Jamie has viewed them thus far, is the way this interview takes place.
So tell us, Jamie, how did you come up with it in the first place?
Well, my English teacher, Miss Gallagher, said to write what we know.
Wait, so you're saying that Is Saves the World is based on real events?
I don't know about you, but that seems like a large logical leap. Say that 5 times fast.
She isn't. Am I isn't. Is she? Am I is?
It's incredible that this girl is showing actual signs of the start of having a severe panic attack, and this lady interviewing her does nothing to avert the situation and almost seems to be intentionally making things worse.
I'm sorry, who's Sawyer? I thought the evil villain's name was Myrna.
Wait. I didn't say Sawyer. I said Myrna, right?
No, you said Sawyer. We have it on tape.
She's not gonna just let that one go? Not gracefully brush past the mistake so that no one watching from home notices? Okay then, let's proceed to embarrass a child on live television and do nothing until it's too late and she's already in full panic mode. That sounds like a great plan. This is not how you do an interview. This isn't your gotcha moment, lady. She's a high school girl, not the president of the United States. But let's rewind a little. We don't want to rush to the fall before we talk about Jamie's rise to stardom and how that affects her social life. Let's circle back to Sawyer real quick. Remember how I said she was the resident mean girl? This whole time, Sawyer has basically not given Jamie a second thought. She usually acts spiteful towards her for no real given reason. But suddenly, now that Jamie is famous, she wants to be friends. It almost feels like there's some sort of depth there. Almost. You see, when Jamie says yes, Sawyer's reaction is just adorable. But then we don't really see much else from her. She gets to call out Jamie, and that's about it. She reverts back to just being a one-dimensional mean girl. We don't get any insight of what it's like to be her friend. Heck, we don't even know what it's like being a group with her other friends. You know, the ones who seem totally shocked that their ability to speak in unison gets them pegged as clone cohorts. Like, are they really that surprised? Really? But the point I really want to make is that while Sawyer's desire to befriend Jamie is somewhat superficial, being Jamie's friend is all she really wants. In a way, it was a validating moment for her. The cool kid said yes to me? That must not be a very usual feeling for her. And that might be because nobody else is really worth her time. But let's contrast this to Jamie's actual friends. So, this is by no means meant to excuse the way that Jamie treats her friends, but something that seems a little bit off to me is how ready they are to use Jamie for her stardom status to achieve their goals.
Let's face it, Connor, we have to share our Jamie with the rest of the world now.
Just as long as she can fill up my animal rights rally like she can fill up a pizza parlor, I think I can deal with it.
Let's preface with some information about both of them. Lindsay is an activist, and Harmony is an artist. Their dynamic? Lindsay decides the cause of the day and recruits Harmony's assistants to spread the word. For some context, a big thing that popped up in movies in the early 2000s was the subject of animal testing. Essentially, drug companies would test cosmetics on rabbits and other small animals, and it is not without risk to the animals in question. Case in point, after the launch of this new makeup brand, Lindsay organizes a rally to gain a following of protesters to object to the use of animals for product testing. A very lofty goal for a teenager, but she does mean well. Side note, I know this scene is just for comedic effect, but who puts makeup on just half their face at a time? And that shade is just way too dark.
Do your makeup in the dark this morning, girls?
I mean, come on, girls. I hate to side with Sawyer, but you made it too easy. Anyway, Jamie's all on board to help Lindsay with her rally. And with her newfound stardom, it might be pretty easy to convince people to show up. If not for the cute animals, at least they'll come for her, right? And you know, I get it. It really does suck when friends flake on you and things don't really turn out the way you want them to. But it's just so funny to me that Sawyer rings up Jamie to be friends. Meanwhile, the girls who are already her friends want to use her for her popularity. It's such a bizarre dynamic to point out, but in her friend's defense, they don't entirely place the blame on Jamie.
It's not our fault that our celebrity endorsement pulled out at the last minute.
No, it's her handler's fault.
Which is good, because the movie tries to make it seem like Jamie's the bad guy because she signs them all up for dance committee, but doesn't show because of her interviews and stuff. Quits working at her dad's pizza place because she doesn't need money or want the added stress of having a job on top of touring, and canceling on her friend's rally because of the tour. But I'd say those are not the reasons. The real reason that Jamie's the bad guy is because of how dismissive she is about her friend's problems and, her failure to communicate with them. She's got her own stuff going on, and while it sucks that she's not living up to these commitments due to having someone else controlling her life, acknowledging that reality and apologizing goes a long way, I feel. I mean, seriously, Jamie, they're your friends. Just tell them. With a lot of these tours and interviews and stuff, there's little Jamie can do to influence which day a TV host gets to talk to her. But at the very least, she can talk to her friends instead of asking someone who is employed by her publisher to call up two teenagers they have little interest in. Moving on, I want to talk about more things that shouldn't be Jamie's problem, like the success of her family's business. Her dad owns a pizza shop, but business isn't going too well. Could it be because of the cost of ingredients? Slow turnout? Pricey menu? The restaurant industry is fairly volatile. There's any number of reasons a restaurant could be performing poorly. And maybe it's something that doesn't need to be explained to the audience. Let them make up a reason. But even Ralph's Pizzeria doesn't get any nuance. I'm guessing they didn't expect their audience to believe a pizza place could ever have bad business, so the reason they chose for the business going under is because Ralph wants to be creative with his pizzas and use unconventional toppings. I'm not going to say they're gross, because who knows? They might be good, actually, and our Western palate just isn't accustomed to these flavor combinations. I think that would have been an interesting plot point if the dad actually tasted his own food and loved it, but was just sad that no one else was willing to try it. But yeah, Ralph keeps trying all these unconventional pizza toppings to the detriment of his own business. And honestly, I gotta say that this is super irresponsible of him. If you're going under and you know business would improve if you just served something boring that everyone would like, you just gotta do it, man. You got a whole family to support and nothing to fall back on. You can't just experiment on your customers and expect the checkbook to look fine at the end of the day. But also, isn't this the weirdest pizza shop ever? Normally, you pick up a menu, and you order your pizza how you want it, or as close as you want it anyway. Usually there's some specialty pizzas you can choose from, but you get to pick what pizza you order. I don't know about you, but if the special of the day says liver and onion pizza, and you don't find that appetizing, don't order it. These kids act like this pizza is being forced upon them. And it's probably because it is.
I would like one pizza, please. Hi, would you like one pizza of the day? I was thinking pepperoni. All right, that's one pizza of the day. But that isn't what I ordered. Good luck.
But then there's this other scene where they're serving pasta bowls and plain pizza. So what is up with this movie? How does ordering food work? Why is this turn out so bad if people can just order something that's not the specialty? I don't get it. They could have decided to not make an obvious reason why his business is failing, and it would have been fine. But this creates more questions than before. I think this might be the only real problem of this movie that I actually take issue with. It doesn't make any sense. It's just irresponsible, and I don't care about the pineapple pizza comparison.
I bet the first person to try a pineapple pizza was laughed at too.
It's still a niche topping. Not everyone likes it. That is not how you run a business when you have a family to take care of. And this is not a problem that a child needs to take care of. Can you imagine the amount of pressure that must be to be a literal child taking care of your parents' financial problems? It is understandable and believable that Jamie is putting that pressure on herself, but Ralph, come on, buddy! Just set aside your pride and do what you have to for your family. The manner in which they save the business is really funny too. Lindsay has decided to add yet another cause to her list and decide that the school dance is a great way to advocate for, I assume, ocean health and beached whales. And she inexplicably has acquired, and this is an actual metric here, an entire trash can full of seaweed to stuff into this papier-mâché whale that Harmony has designed for the school dance. So this seaweed has been sitting in this whale for I don't know how long, a weekend maybe, and during the dance it all spits out all over everyone. And then Lenny, Jamie's brother, and don't worry, we'll talk more about him, accidentally brushes the seaweed off of himself and onto the pizza that his family serves to the post-dance party. And these shots of the kids, not even eating the part with seaweed on it, are just nodding in agreement at how amazing the pizza finally tastes. It's been so long since I've eaten something this good. The kids cheer and ask for more, and the day is saved. Nothing like taking the allowance of teens given by your fellow parents to save the day. It's just so funny that Ralph is ready to sell everything. And a bunch of teenagers, who I presume don't have jobs of their own, come in all at once, and finally, he decides to put aside his pride and sell them cheese pizzas. And is ironically rewarded with this unconventional ingredient being added by accident. And then the sales amassed by these kids' allowance is enough to, I presume, bring the business out from the ashes. Good job, Ralph.
It's the power of my pizza.
So in typical Disney Channel fashion, there's always got to be that girl who likes a guy, but it turns out that the guy she really likes isn't the guy she thinks she likes. Or there's a guy that likes a girl, but doesn't tell her, so she doesn't know that he likes her. And this movie happens to have both. So Jamie has this big crush on Marco Vega because she thinks he's poetic. What she doesn't realize is that all his poetry is written by her friend Connor, whose poetry is written specifically alluding to her. Typical unseen girl likes popular guy trope stuff, you know. So, obviously, we want to root for Connor. The movie wants us to, but it's not like Marco is a bad guy. He's not a malicious person, and I don't even think he's stupid either. He's clearly self-conscious about his academics, his writing ability. He mentions to Jamie that he couldn't believe that she accepted his invite to the dance because his friends all say she's too smart for him. He says the poetry he recites embarrasses him. I mean, if you really think about it, if you're self-conscious about your grades, it's probably really awkward standing in front of an entire class performing for them, all the while feeling down on yourself for your own lack of ability. Also, a friend of mine watched this movie with me, and he pointed out how horribly inappropriate, how enamored this teacher looks when he takes the stage. And I gotta say, I have to agree. But on his second viewing, I also found this kid, and he absolutely sells this shot to me. I love this kid. He makes this scene like 10 times better. Just look at that stare. I love it. But the point I'm getting at here is that Marco isn't a bad guy. He's just not meant for Jamie. He doesn't have the fundamental thing she's looking for, and I think that's nice. We don't need every guy we aren't rooting for to turn out to be a rude jerk. If anything, I feel bad for the guy. He doesn't really seem to belong anywhere. The moment he stops dating Sawyer, he just looks lost. He doesn't know where to sit because he doesn't fit in anywhere else. And he's not even really all that confrontational. Yeah, he broke up with Sawyer, but he's allowed to. And when he asks Connor about Jamie, he's not even being rude. In his mind, he thinks Connor is Jamie's friend. He should be able to pass on his message because he hangs out with her. When Connor initially refuses, Marco's surprised response sounds like he's being lied to. So, I don't know. I think the most egregious sin Marco commits is he has a really hard time separating fiction from reality. It's like he's Kind is and projects her onto Jamie. He's read all this stuff about her in the book and unfairly treats Jamie like that's who she really is. And when she tells him to stop, he has a really hard time doing it. So my verdict, Marco's not a bad guy, but he's not stupid. He's just immature. It's also hard not to feel bad for Connor too, though. His brother, who I'm guessing is in college, he looks way too old to be in high school, if you ask me. He gives him some solid advice about self-respect, but he also holds all this power over his brother the entire time. He agrees to drive his brother to the dance, but only if he does all his chores for an entire month and do his laundry. So it's nice that he's telling his brother to stick up for himself, but it's hard to take it seriously when we all know that he's dangling this bargaining chip over his brother's head. Connor's been looking out for Jamie this entire time, too. Unlike the other two friends, he doesn't really want anything from her. He just wants to work up the courage to tell her that he likes her. And even when everyone else has dropped her as a friend, he gives her a chance to talk, but he still tells it like it is. And I think I can respect that. The thing that bothers me is this line.
Wimped out. I should have just asked you to dance.
Connor, buddy, did you forget the entire montage of you trying to call her? And I don't know, but not treating your other friends like the third wheel by suggesting that you all go together as a group, I don't think that's being a chicken. That's just being considerate. And also, need I remind you, when you tried to ask her to the dance in person, she literally stepped on you to shut you up. Speaking of which, how many people watched this scene and it just planted that seed, and one day they were like, you know, I want someone to do that to me. Yeah, this review got weird. Let's move on. So let's talk about Lenny for a quick sec. To be honest, I think he's a good character. He seems believable. Even if you don't really believe the whole older kids don't like their younger siblings talking to them at school thing, there's still some element of truth to it. Also, it's clear he cares about his sister. He wrote a whole song for her. He's just insecure about his music and expressing himself because, well, he wants to be good at music, and it's validating when it starts making sense, but writing songs is kind of hard. So I don't think there's anything really wrong with the Lenny arc itself. But if you are to really nitpick a few things, Lenny broke his guitar, so whose guitar is he borrowing? Also, Lenny wrote one song and only ever played in his room. Are the other players his friends? Has he practiced with them? How are they so coordinated? And if this song is a song he wrote, how come one of the clone cohorts knows the words to it? How many times did they film this dance scene? That said, song's amazing. Love it. Okay, so the final thing I want to talk about is. Now, I feel like people who want to do the same thing I'm doing might want to point to this is thing, where Jamie is talking to thin air and acting as if she's a real person is unrealistic, but honestly, I think this is the one thing I will defend entirely. First of all, the casting choice is amazing. The older sister playing the self-insert character? Solid casting decision. Secondly, you may recall earlier, before all my word vomit lost thread of the point of this video, I stated that people have this tendency to play out conversations differently in their minds. Well, this is how Jamie compartmentalizes the world of stardom. This is how she copes with the world around her. And if it gets a bit much or a little too weird, it all goes back to one thing: dissociation. You see, Jamie initially doesn't like being famous on the outside, yet we constantly see Iz completely comfortable in this environment. Jamie is uncomfortable with having swarms of students asking for her autograph after that one teacher with boundary issues pushed her way into forcing Jamie's hand, yet it's possible that subconsciously Jamie actually enjoys it. She may not admit it, but she really does. Initially, Iz acts as her inner Sakura. That's a Naruto reference in case you're wondering. She coaches her on what to say, motivates her to go out and do something, and acts as that voice inside her head that criticizes her dumb mistakes. I should go out and socialize, but I'm too nervous to talk to real people. Look, a cute puppy. Drat! I failed to do the one thing I just told myself to do. You can see when Jamie becomes comfortable with things, Iz goes away. She walks down a hall and embraces her newfound popularity all on her own. But the moment she questions anything, Iz comes back to convince her that things have to be a certain way. It's a visual representation of a rationale. Eventually, Iz personifies all the negative things about Jamie that she hates about herself. It's easier to cope with negative aspects of yourself if you can give it a name and vilify it. It also shows a bizarre form of self-awareness. The entire time, Jamie is navigating through all this new territory with uncertainty, and she uses her imaginary, much cooler and much stronger self to do it. The other interesting thing is there is only one time when they speak in unison, and that's when Jamie begrudgingly agrees to go along with what Iz wants her to do. It's the one time Jamie visibly loses her patience and gives in to her most negative traits. The truth is, this is Jamie's core. Her world, as she experiences it, is almost as if she's just a spectator to her own life. She isn't really the main character. It's always, if only I had done this, or I wish I could do this. She lives her whole life editorializing every aspect of it in order to cope with her day-to-day stresses. I'm not saying that she's not living her own life or incapable of making her own choices, but I am saying that she is becoming more aware as time goes on how she addresses major change in her life and struggles to maintain control. And I like that about this movie. Honestly, I think that the principle of the movie is this aspect, and it's clearly the strongest. It might be why, for all the weird little nitpicks I can throw at it, it's a fun movie to watch, and it's enjoyable for what it is. So yes, we can point at how her friends are one-note characters, how her father's business is failing, not because that's just the way things are, but because he's a terrible business owner, or even how cliquish the movie feels at times with these outdated character types. But I find it charming all the same, so maybe I failed the test. Maybe nostalgia really has got the better of me, and the dynamic between Jamie and Iz isn't good enough to save this movie. But at the end of the day, I still love it. And I can distinguish fiction from reality enough to know that not every person I meet is a one-dimensional caricature of an archetype, which, incidentally, is the somewhat flimsy narrated point of the film. We are more than what other people think we are. We're complex human beings, and it isn't fair to reduce people in that way, even if that's the only side of themselves they show us. So that's it for this video review. If you remember watching this growing up, let me know what you think about the movie now that you're older. Do you see something I missed? Do you have something else that could be defended? Leave a comment. I'm interested in seeing what you have to say. In the next video I do, I'm going to give myself a bit more permission to just gush about all the reasons I love it. I hope if you like this video, you'll like that one too. Until next time, stay tuned.